Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the SWUS College Football Week 9. Got two more games here. These games, we're getting better. We're out of Conference USA. This week got started off with a win. I had the under in the UTEP game last night. I also had FIU correct, but I didn't bet that one. But nice to see this week starting off 1-0, trying to make it 3 straight college football winning weeks. So hopefully that success continues. I'm recording this before the Wednesday night games, so we'll see how those pan out, even though I don't actually have any bets down on those anyway. So, all right, 2 games Thursday. Let's go.
Welcome to the SWUS. The SWUS. SWUS. Hey, get the SWUS.
First up, we are in the Sun Belt Conference. We got Georgia Southern on the road at Old Dominion. ODU laying 2 points at home. Total sitting at 54 or 54.5. Now, mostly 54, actually. Let's take a look at the pie charts, and according to this data, action is coming in on the Georgia Southern side. 70% of the tickets, 60% of the money on Georgia Southern. But as I always say, take this data with a grain of salt. So let's take a look at this matchup, and we'll start with the strengths of these two teams. Georgia Southern, an offensive team. Old Dominion, a defensive team. And I had said before the season that I expected Old Dominion's defense to be good this year. They had a solid run defense last year. I think they brought back 6 of the 7 starters in the defensive front. So I'm not surprised that Old Dominion's playing great defense against the run. I didn't expect it to be quite this good. What is surprising me is they're also locking down the pass. Old Dominion is sitting at 48th in the country in yards per play allowed, 25th in success rate, 50th in PPA, 51st in effective rush, 52nd in effective pass. So this is a great run defense, and it's looking like a great pass defense too. Sitting at 59th in DFEI, that's an excellent mark for a Sun Belt program. This isn't going to be an easy one, though. They're up against Georgia Southern. This is a Clay Helton team, so you know they can put points up. As a whole this year, I mean, maybe a little bit disappointing offensively, just 98th in yards per play, 91st in success rate. This is Clay Helton, usually has an electric passing attack. So far, 98th in yards per pass attempt, 104th in success rate per drop back. Like I said, this is a Georgia Southern offense that wants to throw the ball. They're 31st in pass frequency, 6th in pace, which makes sense. Clay Helton is coaching this team. He comes from USC. They want to throw the ball. They want to move quick. And I mentioned how the strength of this Old Dominion defense is stopping the run. But check this out. They've been playing great defense against the pass recently. In their last 2 games, they're allowing just 5.45 yards per pass attempt, 37% success rate per drop back, 216.5 passing yards allowed per game. And you might be thinking, okay, against who? They played Georgia State and Texas State. Georgia State with Valaire, that's a decent Sun Belt passing attack. And Texas State with Jordan McLeod, it's one of the best passing attacks in the entire conference. In those 2 games against Georgia State and Texas State, they held them both to 14 points. 14 points a game. They both scored only 14 points in the game. 4.6 yards per play, 35.5% success rate. Jordan McLeod, we know how electric he is over at Texas State. One of the best offenses in the entire Sun Belt Conference. Against Old Dominion, just 17 of 33, 173 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, 93.4 passer rating. This was by far his worst game of the season. Look at his passer rating by game here. The worst one other than the Old Dominion game was Arizona State. That's a Big 12 defense. That's probably a top 35, top 40 defense right there. 142.5 passer rating. Against Old Dominion, 93.4. So this Old Dominion defense is looking real. Now, we do have to give Georgia Southern some credit. They are on a 3-game winning streak. They're averaging 30 points a game in those last 3. 45.6% success rate, 5.86 yards per play. And, okay, against Georgia State, that defense isn't very good. But Marshall and James Madison, those are solid defenses. So Georgia Southern is moving the ball and scoring points against bad defenses. But this game is on the road, and this offense has been significantly worse on the road so far this year. They've played 3 road games: Nevada, Ole Miss, and Georgia State. In those 3 games, averaging just 23.7 points per game, 4.68 yards per play, 37.1% success rate. And you might be thinking, well, Kyle, that Ole Miss game is skewing the numbers. That's true. So why don't we take Ole Miss out? In their 2 road games, not including the Ole Miss game, 29 points per game, 5.62 yards per play. Still significantly worse than their numbers at home. 34.8 points per game, 43.4% success rate, 5.76 yards per play. So no question, this Georgia Southern offense has not been as effective on the road. Now they're going on the road against Old Dominion. This defense looks real. So I think they're going to struggle here. This Old Dominion defense has given us reasons to have faith in them. I think they're going to struggle. But what about on the other side of the ball? What about the Georgia Southern defense against the Old offense. Well, these are the weaknesses of both these teams. Old Dominion, not a strong offensive team, just 99th in OFEI. They do have something that resembles a run game. 51st in yards per carry, 98th in success rate per rush, 39th in effective rush. Passing attack has not been there at all. It's a little better now that they've made a change at quarterback. We'll talk about that in a second. But as a whole, this is not a passing attack that should put fear in you at all. They're matched up against Georgia Southern, who really struggling to stop the run right now. On the whole, they're 114th in yards per play, 116th in success rate. Look at their numbers against the run. 121st in the country in yards per carry allowed, 131st in success rate per rush. So this is a Georgia Southern defense that's been struggling to stop the run, which is good news for Old Dominion because they do like to run the ball. They're 51st in run frequency so far this year. They got off to a really slow start. Through their first two games against South Carolina and ECU, they were averaging just 2.71 yards per carry, 36.6% success rate per rush. The run game has come alive as of late, though. In their last 5 games, 5.5 yards per carry as a team, 41.6% success rate per rush, over 207 rushing yards per game. And if you look at the opponents, these are solid. I mean, Virginia Tech, Bowling Green, that's a solid MAC program. Coastal Carolina's got a decent defense this year. Georgia State, not the best defense, but Texas State, that's a solid team. So they're averaging 5.5 yards per carry in their last 5 games, and that's against solid competition. Now, the good news, if you like Georgia Southern, is they have been playing good defense against the run. In their last 3 games, they're allowing just 3.38 yards per carry, 42% success rate. That's against Marshall, James Madison. Georgia State is more of a passing team, but Marshall can run the ball. So that's an impressive defensive performance. Also, we know James Madison is strong. So Georgia Southern playing much better defense against the run as of late. And if you look at Georgia Southern's defensive line metrics, no question their strength has been defending the run. 105th in line yards, 73rd in stuff rate. So even though Old Dominion has been having some success running the ball lately, Georgia Southern, I think, is equipped to at least limit the rushing attack. And we mentioned how Old Dominion has no passing attack. In their first 4 games, Old Dominion was averaging 4.93 yards per pass attempt, 31.4% success rate per dropback. Terrible. They had one of the worst passing attacks in the entire country. Then they made the quarterback change over to Colton Joseph. Since then, it's been better. It still hasn't been good, but 5.77 yards per attempt, 39.5% success rate per dropback. So the passing attack has definitely improved since making the quarterback shift over to Joseph. But check this out. Colton Joseph in his 3 starts, not only are the passing numbers slightly better, check this out. 39 carries, 277 yards on the ground, 4 rushing touchdowns. So the entire offense seems a little rejuvenated since Colton Joseph, who's a freshman, by the way, has taken over at quarterback. Look at what Old Dominion did in those 3 games. They went on the road to Coastal, played them tough, 45-37, putting up points. Coastal Carolina is a solid Sun Belt program. At Georgia State, beat them outright. Texas State beat them by 10 points at home. Texas State's one of the favorites to win the conference. So this Old Dominion team as a whole, the defense is coming to life. The offense seems to have a little more life with the quarterback change. This is looking like a solid Sun Belt team right here. And if this is under 3, it has to be Old Dominion. I know everyone seems to be taking Georgia Southern. I like what I'm seeing from Old Dominion. It's a freshman quarterback, which is a little shaky because it's going to come down to earth at some point. Look, it's a midweek Sun Belt Conference game, so please bet responsibly. But I'm laying it. I believe in this Old Dominion team. I believe in Colton Joseph. Give me ODU -2 here. Next game. We are in the ACC up next. Got Syracuse, Pittsburgh. Good one here. Pitt's laying looks like 6. I do see a 6.5 out there. Total sitting at pretty much 62.5 across the board. Take a look at the pie charts, and according to this data, action's coming in on the Syracuse side. Over 60% of the tickets, over 75% of the money. But as I always say, take it with a grain of salt. So let's get into this matchup. We'll start with the Syracuse offense. Actually, let's talk about the Pitt defense first because I was so wrong about this defensive front. This is a Pitt defense that came into the season. They had lost all 4 starters on the defensive line. They had also lost their D-line coach. So coming into this season, I was like, hey, this Pitt defense should really struggle to stop the run. I couldn't have been more incorrect. This run defense looks amazing. They're 9th in the country in yards per carry allowed, 18th in success rate per rush, 23rd in effective pass. Now, the good news for Syracuse, they don't really run the ball much. This is a pass-first offense with Kyle McCord to the maximum, and they've been pretty good at it. 45th in yards per pass attempt, 7th in success rate per dropback, 6th in effective pass. In fact, the Syracuse offense is sitting 21st in the country in OFEI. So Syracuse, according to some advanced metrics, this is a top 25 offense here. And like I said, this is an offense that wants to throw the ball. They're 3rd in the country in passing frequency. So only 2 FBS teams throw the ball more frequently than Syracuse, and they're 7th in pace. Run and gun to the maximum. This Syracuse offense can put up points in a hurry. On the season, they're averaging over 365 passing yards per game, over a 51% success rate per dropback, 7.78 yards per pass attempt. So no question, this is a dangerous passing attack. They're 6th in the country in effective pass for a reason. And if you look at Pitt's pass defense numbers, they're okay on the season. But if you isolate it to just the games where they saw decent quarterbacks, and I mean, Cincinnati, West Virginia, I mean, Sorsby's actually been really good this year for Cincinnati, but Garrett Green in West Virginia, that's a run-first program. Cal with Mendoza is pretty good. So if we isolate it to just the games where they saw quarterbacks that are capable of throwing the ball, the defensive numbers don't look nearly as good. I mean, they're not terrible. 7.4 yards per pass attempt allowed, 41.4% success rate per dropback, 260 passing yards per game allowed. So the only 3 times they saw decent quarterbacks, they did struggle a little bit against the pass. And what does this Pittsburgh defense do a lot of? Zone coverage. They're actually 10th in the country in zone coverage frequency. Syracuse, one of the best passing attacks in the FBS against zone coverage, top 10, top 15, top 20, pretty much across the board in passing metrics against zone coverage. So it looks like a pretty good matchup for McCord to continue his dominant season. Now, Pitt, like I said, they have been great against the run. They're allowing just 2.81 yards per carry on the season, 35% success rate per rush. They've been excellent against the run. You could say that they're a little overvalued in that department. They've only seen 2 teams that are capable of running the ball this year, and in those games, the run defense numbers don't look nearly as good. Against West Virginia and North Carolina, they're allowing 4.19 yards per carry, 42.8% success rate per rush, 167.5 rushing yards per game. So when they've seen rushing attacks, they didn't look quite as elite against the run, but does that even matter? I mean, Syracuse can't run the ball. They've really been struggling to get the run going. In their last 2 games against UNLV and NC State, they're averaging just 3.26 yards per carry as a team. Success rate per rush under 38%. So Pitt, okay, maybe the run defense is a little overvalued, and when they see a team that can actually run the ball, we can fade them. But Syracuse can't run the ball. But the thing is, it's not like Kyle McCord isn't used to not having run support. He hasn't had run support all season. He still got over 2,100 yards, 7.6 yards per attempt, 19 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, tons of big plays through the air. He throws the ball downfield, throws it short. Syracuse offensive line in terms of pass protection has been pretty good. 65th in sack rate, 40th in pressure rate allowed. So McCord should have some time to throw in this one, and when he's been given a clean pocket, he's been excellent. So against Pitt's zone coverage, he's been really good against zone coverage, coming off extra rest. I expect Kyle McCord to not have problems getting the ball up and down the field in this one. But now we flip it over to the other side, and this is where it doesn't look nearly as good for Syracuse. Pitt offensively has been great this year, 23rd in yards per play, 20th in success rate. They've been running the ball a little bit, but really the passing attack is what has stolen the show here for Pitt with Eli Holstein. They're 26th in the country in yards per pass attempt, 31st in success rate per dropback, 32nd in effective pass. And Syracuse defensively, I mean, 106th in yards per play, 98th in success rate. They've struggled against the run. I mean, I guess they've been slightly better against the pass. They're sitting at 57th in effective pass, but just 118th in success rate per dropback. So Syracuse is not a defense I trust much at all here. Holstein, as I'm sure you've heard, he's having a great season. Just under 1,700 yards, 8.5 yards per attempt, 15 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. But one thing that worries me a bit when it comes to Pittsburgh's offense, they seem to have racked up a ton of elite-looking stats against bad defenses early in the season. They started off in their first 4 games against Kent State. Cincinnati's defense isn't very good. West Virginia's defense has been wildly disappointing, and an FCS program. In those 4 games, they averaged 48.5 points per game, over 51% success rate, 7.79 yards per play. They were looking electric in those first 4 games. Look at their offensive numbers in their last 2 games since then when they've actually seen some decent defenses, North Carolina and Cal. Points per game drops from 48.5 all the way down to 25.5. Success rate down below 40%, under 6 yards per play. So this Pittsburgh offense that looks so electric to start the season has really taken some steps backwards now that they've seen some tough defenses. And the same goes for Holstein in the passing attack. Just under 330 yards per game, 48.5% success rate per dropback, over 9 yards per attempt. That's in the first 4 games. In their last 2 games, we're down under 7 yards per pass attempt, down to a 42.3% success rate, 257 passing yards per game. So Eli Holstein's magical season seems to be stuttering a little bit now that he's seen some tougher defenses as well. Why has that been happening? Well, it looks like the Pitt offensive line may not be very good in terms of pass protection. They're 111th in pressure rate, 69th in sack rate. Eli Holstein, when given a clean pocket, has been excellent. When pressured, we do see the production dip a bit. So the question is, does Syracuse have a pass rush? Not really. It's not great. It's not terrible, but it's not great either. 76th in pressure rate, 83rd in sack rate. Pro Football Focus does have him at 35th in pass rush grade, but as far as the production we've seen so far, this pass rush would probably be classified as decent. But as much as I want to sell high on the Pittsburgh offense, and I actually did, Cal plus 3.5 was my top bet 2 Saturdays ago. So I did already sell high on the Pitt offense. As much as I would like to continue fading this overvalued offense, how can we have any faith right now in the Syracuse pass defense? In their first 3 games against Ohio, Georgia Tech, and Stanford, numbers were looking all right. 6.4 yards per attempt, under 224 passing yards allowed per game, 45.9% success rate per dropback, not great. But look at their last 2 games against UNLV and NC State. These aren't elite passing attacks. 278 passing yards allowed per game, 64.9% success rate per dropback, 11.4 yards per attempt. This pass defense has looked awful in their last 2 games. I don't know how we could have any faith in it right now. Now, we can say the Syracuse run defense has taken a step forward. They've looked decent in their last 2 games against UNLV, by the way, a great rushing attack, and NC State. 104.5 rushing yards allowed per game, 37% success rate per rush is pretty good, and Pittsburgh not the strongest run team. In the last 2 games against UNC and Cal, 4.49 yards per carry, success rate per rush down below 37%. So maybe we can find an angle for Syracuse limiting the Pittsburgh rushing attack. I can get on board with that. But as far as the Syracuse secondary making stops against Holstein on the road, I just can't see it. It doesn't seem responsible to bet on something like that. So where does that leave me in terms of placing a bet? Well, my favorite angle in this game is I like McCord to piece Pittsburgh up. I think that Pittsburgh pass defense is very undervalued. They haven't seen a passing attack that comes even close to Syracuse so far this year. Kyle McCord against zone coverage. Kyle McCord should have time in the pocket. Kyle McCord coming off extra rest. They should definitely put up points. The problem is, I don't feel comfortable even taking 6 or 6.5 with Syracuse because that defense, I have no faith in it at all. I have no faith in the Syracuse defense to make stops. So what I did, I bet this game, I took Syracuse team total over 27.5 because that's what I'm most comfortable with. I'm comfortable betting on Syracuse to score points in this game. Whether or not they can make stops, I lean that way. If you're looking to bet a side, I would go Syracuse plus the 6, but I felt more comfortable just taking the team total. So I'm on Syracuse team total over 27.5. I think you can still get it. I bet this early in the week. I think if you look, you can still find 27.5s out there. So that's what I'm on. If you'd like to see all the bets I currently have open for the weekend, head over to KyleKirms.com and click on open bets. You'll see all mine as well as everyone else on the staff here. Also, if you signed up to Sauce Network Plus, it comes with access to the Discord and you can participate in the weekly betting league. $150 and one of these trophies go to the winner every single week. So if you're interested, head over to the website and sign up. Let's have ourselves a nice college football week 9 here. I'm looking for 3 straight winning weeks. I need it because I got rocked earlier in the season. So 3 straight winning weeks would be nice. Please remember to bet responsibly. Talk to you in the Discord.